1 week. That's it. Just 7 days until the Boston Celtics are back on the court, and the countdown is officially real now. On Wednesday, the 22, the Celtics tip off against the Philadelphia 76ers. And let's be honest, it's not really Philly without the full-strength version of Embiid. We're probably looking at the Hospital Sixers version, but that doesn't matter. Celtics basketball is back, and that's all that counts right now. The news cycle's taken a bit of a breather today, which feels weird after the nonstop updates we've had recently. But even in a slower moment, there's still plenty to talk about, especially when it involves a Celtics legend. That's right, we got to give some love to Al Horford today. There was a recent feature that dove deep into his mindset, his departure, and the next phase of his career, and it's definitely worth unpacking. So here's the situation. Al Horford opened up in a piece by Nick Friedel, who used to be over at ESPN and is now at The Athletic, and it was surprisingly revealing. The veteran didn't shy away from admitting that the off-season moves made by Boston pushed him to make a tough decision. He wasn't bitter about it, but it was clear the writing was on the wall for him. When a team starts moving key guys like Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, it's more than just cap space chess. It sends a signal about where the priorities are heading. And for a player like Al, who's about to turn 40, that matters. You're not trying to grind through a rebuilding phase when you've got 1, maybe 2 competitive seasons left in you. Al said it best himself. Once the offseason got going and the moves started happening, it was clear Boston was pivoting. He didn't blame anyone, didn't make it personal, but he made it clear that he and his family had to make a decision together. And that decision brought him to Golden State, to a team that still expects to contend. It wasn't just about the money, though let's not pretend that wasn't a factor, but it was about staying in the mix, staying competitive, keeping the dream alive of another deep playoff run. And honestly, who can blame him? Horford has always been about professionalism, leadership, and bringing value to a team beyond the box score. He's been the veteran voice in the locker room, the guy who never panics, and the one who knows how to elevate the guys around him. The Celtics absolutely benefited from that stability. But even for a guy like Al, there's a moment where loyalty takes a back seat to legacy. If Boston can't guarantee that they're all in to chase another ring, he's got to find somewhere that is. And look, the Celtics are not blowing it up. That needs to be said. This isn't a teardown. Tatum and Brown are still here. The core is still dangerous. But when guys start leaving, especially ones you've won a title with, built chemistry with, spent years battling alongside, you naturally ask yourself if it's still the same team you signed up for. Horford knew the clock was ticking. He probably didn't want to watch the group fade away piece by piece while hoping for another chance to win big. And with Tatum's injury also hanging over the offseason, it was just one more sign that the window might not be as wide open as it was. What's wild is that we're at this point where the Celtics feel like they're entering a new phase. Not the end of the Tatum and Brown era by any means, but definitely a reshaping. That's the natural course of any long title run. Think about the Bulls in the 90s, or the Warriors more recently. The stars stay, but the supporting cast always evolves. You can't hold on to everyone forever, especially not in this new era of financial restrictions. Boston simply couldn't afford to keep Porzingis, Holiday, and Al. Something had to give. And still it stings, because there's something that feels right about Al Horford in a Celtics uniform. The idea of him retiring in Boston would have been a perfect final chapter. And maybe it still happens with a symbolic one-day contract in the future. But for now, he's in Golden State, suited up alongside a different set of grizzled veterans. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler. It's the graybeard crew, and maybe that's exactly what Al needs right now. One last run with guys who've been through it just like he has. And just to put it in perspective, let's look at what he's done. Horford, now officially an NBA champion, has had a long and respected career, averaging Tres Pontos, 8 rebotes, e 3 assistências, shooting 50% from the field, 30% from beyond the arc, and 70% from the line. Those aren't just solid numbers. Those are Hall of Fame level consistency. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's been top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And don't forget, it's not just the NBA that counts when it comes to the Hall. This is the Basketball Hall of Fame. and AL's back-to-back national titles with the Florida Gators? Yeah, those count too. So yeah, he's got the resume. And more importantly, he's got the respect. And even though it's weird seeing him in another jersey again, Celtics fans will always have love for Big Al. He was the anchor during two of the most competitive stretches in recent team history, and he finally got his ring. That chapter is closed with pride. Now switching gears for a second, we had to talk about what went down with Joe Mazzulla recently, because this was hilarious. Media day turns into game day, and suddenly Mazzulla's going full lockdown defense on Celtics beat writers. No joke, the Celtics coaching staff decided they were going to suit up and take on the media in a full-blown scrimmage, and they didn't just show up, they dominated. We're talking full court pressure, defensive intensity, the whole deal. It was a slaughter. At one point, the lead was stretched to quasi 50 points. Mazzulla himself was diving around, pressing up like it was March Madness. Phil Prezi out there pushing the score even higher. It was wild. And this comes right after Mazzulla gave a really candid interview about how he wants to be perceived differently. Less as the intense guy, more as someone building connection and culture. Then he turns around and absolutely destroys a group of journalists in a scrimmage. You can't make this stuff up. But honestly, it says something about who he is. Joe's a competitor. Whether it's running an NBA team or a scrimmage against guys who write about basketball for a living, he's going to bring intensity. And sure, it's funny on the surface, but it also reveals a lot about how he sees team building. There's a method to the madness, even when it looks unhinged from the outside. He's setting the tone, even if it's just by putting a beat down on some media dudes. And maybe that's what makes Mazzulla interesting. He's not your typical coach. He doesn't do things by the book, and sometimes that gets him in trouble, especially when it comes to late-game timeouts or drawn-up plays out of breaks. But he's learning. Last season, he improved a lot with in-game management, particularly stopping opponent runs with better timeout timing. That growth shows he's paying attention, and he's willing to adjust. And the reality is, being an NBA head coach today is about a lot more than X's and O's. It's about trust, respect, connection, getting buy-in from elite-level athletes who don't just need to be coached. They need to believe that you see the game the way they do. Mazzulla seems to understand that part. It's not just about drawing up the perfect after-timeout play. It's about setting a culture where those plays matter because the players actually believe in what they're being asked to do. Now that we've set the table with Al Horford's exit and the chaos of Joe Mazzulla's competitive scrimmages, it's time to shift into what's coming next. Predictions. Award season. Potential breakouts. Who's going to get the recognition? Who's going to be in those conversations by the time the All-Star weekend rolls around or the end-of-season accolades are handed out? Let's talk Celtics, let's talk league-wide, and let's try not to be too biased, but no promises there. Let's start with the All-Star scene. Jaylen Brown is going to be there. That's almost a lock. His production is consistent, his two-way play is still elite, and if the Celtics start the season hot, voters will take notice. But there's a growing buzz around Derek White too. And honestly, it's deserved. People look at him as a defensive specialist, but this year, the offensive load might increase a little. With changes in the rotation and the Celtics needing more reliable shot creation from the backcourt, Derek's going to get his chances. Don't be surprised if he averages somewhere around Quinn's to Desicete points per game and still brings his elite defense. That combination, especially on a winning team, can absolutely get him into the All-Star conversation. And don't sleep on Peyton Pritchard. Is a long shot? Sure. But when you're one of the league leaders in three-point percentage and you've got the ball in your hands more, the hype builds quickly. He's already got the confidence. Now he just needs the minutes and the consistency. If Boston's offense clicks and Pritchard becomes a key piece of the second unit, he could surprise people. Even if he doesn't crack the All-Star game, you better believe his name is going to come up when people talk about most improved players or top role players in the league. Speaking of threes, the Celtics might be sending multiple players to the three-point contest this year. Between Pritchard, White, and potentially Simons, they got a stable of sharpshooters. Don't be shocked if two of them end up getting invites. It's in Los Angeles this year, so you know the show is going to be flashy. And Boston could be right in the middle of that spotlight. Now on to the big one, MVP. Jason Tatum is always going to be in the mix, But the truth is, this year feels like it's setting up for Luka Doncic to take it. He's coming in leaner, already showing signs of another statistical explosion, and with LeBron dealing with what seems like more physical setbacks, the door is open. Luka's going to have the keys to everything in Dallas, and if they rack up wins, he's going to get those votes. There's also a possibility for someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to sneak in if Oklahoma City takes a leap. But if you're placing bets, Luka feels like the narrative and stat darling of the season. Still, that doesn't mean Tatum's out of it. If Boston ends up as the #1 seed in the East, and he's leading the way, he's going to be on those MVP ballots. He might not win it this year, but top 5 feels more than reasonable, especially if he comes out with a chip on his shoulder after all the offseason noise about injuries, the roster reshuffling, and Horford's departure. Sometimes that kind of adversity brings out the best in elite players. Don't count him out. Now let's talk 6th man of the year. This one's going to be fascinating. Anthony Simons looks like a favorite here. He's in a situation where he might not start, but he'll still play 30-plus minutes and have the green light to score in bunches. Portland's rotation is still figuring itself out, but Simons is probably going to come off the bench just enough to qualify, and he's the kind of player who can drop Vint Isinko on any given night. It's going to be hard to ignore that level of production. Peyton Pritchard might also be in the conversation here, depending on how the rotation shakes out. He's been electric in stretches, and if his shooting stays hot, he'll be a fan favorite for the award. But keep an eye on some sneaky names, too. Santi Aldama in Memphis could be a dark horse. With injuries in the Grizzlies' front court, he'll get minutes and touches early. He's got the size and skill to be a real contributor. Also, Khalil Ware in Miami is a name that might surprise people. He probably won't start, but off the bench, especially if Miami leans on a small ball lineup, he could get buckets and draw some eyes. All of this, of course, depends on roles sticking throughout the season, which is always a gamble. Coach of the Year? You have to mention Joe Mazzulla here. Not because of bias, but because the narrative is right there. If the Celtics exceed expectations, let's say they win between 45 and 46 games in a year where many think they're taking a step back, that reflects directly on coaching. Especially when the team's identity starts to feel like an extension of the coach, which is already happening with Mazzulla. His growth, the team chemistry, and how this new rotation gels will all be major factors in determining whether he gets serious consideration. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The Boston Celtics locker room might be buzzing louder than ever as whispers of a familiar face returning begin to circulate. Marcus Smart, the heart and soul of the Celtics' defensive identity, is reportedly on the verge of a sensational return to the team that made him a household name. While nothing is confirmed, sources close to the franchise suggest that negotiations are progressing, and fans are already dreaming of a reunion that could reshape the Eastern Conference landscape. Smart, who has long been celebrated for his intensity, leadership, and clutch plays, left the Celtics a few seasons ago, leaving a void that many argued was never truly filled. Now, the possibility of him donning the green and white once again is sending ripples through Boston's basketball community. Social media has been ablaze with speculation, with supporters reminiscing about his tenacious defense, game-changing steals, and his knack for igniting the team during critical moments. Analysts are already debating how his return could impact the Celtics' current roster, questioning rotations, defensive schemes, and even the team's championship aspirations. Insiders hint that the motivation behind Smart's potential comeback is more than just basketball. It's about unfinished business. Boston, known for its rich history and demanding fan base, has always held a special place in the guard's heart. Rumor has it that the Celtics see him as a piece that could instantly elevate their championship window, blending veteran savvy with the fiery energy he's famous for. While the deal is still shrouded in mystery, one thing seems certain. If Smart returns, the Celtics' identity will be redefined overnight. Coaches, players, and fans alike are preparing for a potential shift in dynamics, anticipating that Smart's leadership both on and off the court could inject the team with renewed purpose. Whether it's the defensive tenacity, clutch plays, or simply the aura of the captain himself, Boston may be about to welcome back one of its most iconic figures, and the rumor alone has already reignited hope across the city. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter, or the perfect storm that brings the Celtics closer to glory? The whispers are growing louder, and if Marcus Smart really is coming home, the NBA world will be watching Boston like never before. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.